Good morning. All right, we are going to have an amazing program today. Dominique Dawes is best known for her successes as an Olympic gymnast, competing in 3 Olympic Games, winning 4 Olympic medals, and holding a permanent place in the U.S. Olympic Committee Hall of Fame. Awesome Dawson, I found that. Is that okay if I say that? That's her good nickname. Awesome Dawson and her fellow Magnificent Seven made history at the 1996 Summer Olympics, famously bringing home the first gold medal for a U.S. gymnastics team. Dawes earned bronze in floor exercise at the 1996 Atlanta Games, becoming the first Black American woman to win an individual Olympic medal in gymnastics. Owner of the Dominique Dawes Gymnastics and Ninja Academies, Dominique opened the gyms to continue her commitment to developing a healthy and compassionate culture in the sport of gymnastics. Dawes also holds minority ownership of the Washington Spirit of the National Women's Soccer League and serves as the co-chair of the President's Council for Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition under the Obama administration. Alongside LeBron James and Maverick Carter, she recently served as executive producer of the Peacock docuseries Golden, which has been nominated for a Sports Emmy. Dawes holds her degree from the University of Maryland and was inducted into UMD's prestigious Hall of Fame in 2022. And in 2023, her hometown of Montgomery Court, Maryland, will honor her career and legacy with a life-size statue to continue inspiring the next generation to follow in her footsteps. As a wife, a mother of 4, Olympian, and business owner, I just got chills. I mean, hats off to you. Dominique Dawes has transcended the world of sports, politics, entertainment, and culture. Presenting to you, Dominique Dawes.
Thank you. So Cords just asked me, he's like, do you like watching this? And I was like, absolutely not. But the good thing is at least I know the outcome, right? People always like to ask me if I can still flip, and I like to lie and say if only this stage was 40 by 40, blue, and full of spring, I could actually do that performance. Now, guys, I'm 46. There's not a chance in hell. Yeah, it's over. I own a gymnastics academy. I'm opening a second one that was supposed to open in October. We talked about the supply chain issues. It is a nightmare these days, but it is going to open, fingers crossed, in 6 weeks. And the thing is, I love watching the thousands of kids that we have in our first program and the soon-to-be other thousands of kids in our second program do all the flips. And I even have my 4 kids in it as well. So when parents do come up to me and they want to reminisce over this performance from 27 years ago. Isn't that crazy? Like we have aged, right? Like, I have a couple of gray hairs on the side, and I said to my husband, like, doesn't that look good? He's like, not so much. Like, you got to get rid. And yet he has all this gray hair everywhere, and it's, like, sophisticated with him. So unfair, right? But it's been 27 years. I cannot believe it. Cannot believe it whatsoever. I've got a little bit of a bulge in the left pocket of mine. It is the Olympic gold medal. Not that I won't pass it around here, but I know afterwards we're doing a meet and greet. Someone had asked me, hey, are we doing photos? And I said, definitely, but to get a photo, you have to cartwheel to me. Todd's like, I got this. He's like, I got this. We was talking. Back in the day, you told me about your experience at Brown's Gymnastics. It's going to come back to you. However, is there a medic in the room? Because some of us think we can do the things that we used to once be able to do, right? I want to keep it serious, but not. I always like to, believe it or not, I am not a funny person whatsoever. My husband's like, I don't know why audiences laugh at you. By nature, I'm very private. I'm very introverted. You know, I'm very focused and very driven, but yet I recognize the importance also because of my husband. I praise my husband a lot on stage, but in person, like, no way. You know, I'm constantly I'm not constantly criticizing him, but he does not know how to load a dishwasher, right? What is going on with that? But no, he's definitely the yin to my yang. What helped me, and I always refer to the screen because those gymnastics days are not coming back whatsoever. What helped me become successful in the athletic arena. I started the sport of gymnastics when I was 6 years old. How many have little ones? Yes. And you throw them in the sport of gymnastics, they're having fun, it's so much excitement. I slept with 3 of my little ones, and my husband and my son had to sleep on the cot. It was a very small room. But I started when I was 6 years old, and I did it for 18 years. And I look back at that journey, and there were some great friendships that were made along the way. And when I say friendships, I'm not talking about, and I will talk about Shannon Miller and Amanda Borden and Carrie Strug and what have you. Those were my competitors for all of my childhood. I remember having a locker back in the day, and I had Shannon Miller's photo there. Do you guys remember Shannon Miller from Edmond, Oklahoma? Yeah, you seem like you're a little too big of a fan. Where is security when I need security? She was like, Shannon was spectacular. In the locker, it was Shannon Miller. I was gunning for her every single day. It was an individual sport. How many of you all remember watching the Olympics and watching gymnastics? Yes. How many of you all were there? It's amazing. Amazing. Like, what was that experience like for you? You were not with your kids, because that was 27 years ago. You know, with your family. Did you get a ticket to gymnastics? Not a chance. You did. Wow. That's amazing. Oh, you worked for the Olympics, so you had your in. That's awesome. It was a very tough ticket to get, just to the Olympics in general, but to get gymnastics. I mean, I did some work throughout. Once my career was over, I worked at different Olympic games, and they gave me tickets to handball. And I was like, what is this? Not that handball isn't exciting, right? But gymnastics was one of the hottest and toughest tickets to get. And I started when I was 6 years old, and that was a journey that was full of a lot of highs at times and a lot of lows. My friends were my teammates that were there day in and day out with me. And again, like I mentioned, it wasn't my Olympic teammates. We were at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. When I found out that I had to be at this gig at 7:30, I was like, oh my gosh, it's taking me back to my career. Really? Or like, I have 4 kids. Motherhood, right? I mean, thank goodness my twins are 5 now. I'm like, you are sleeping, you know? Then I find another reason to get up in the middle of the night to deal with HVAC issues in my facilities. But that journey made me who I am today. But the sport of gymnastics is very much an individual sport. When you watch gymnasts, especially at the Olympics, let's say, we're the only ones standing on that 4-inch balance beam. Don't look at my busted, swollen ankles right now, okay? We're the only one on that 4-inch balance beam, 4 feet off the ground. And in Atlanta, there was nearly 50,000 people in the Georgia Dome. They cut the Georgia Dome in half. One half was gymnastics in the first part of the Olympics. The other half was basketball. Did you get that ticket? Oh my gosh, you knew everyone. Did you run into, goodness, Rodman on the way to the bathroom at those Olympic Games. He's like, no, I did not. I did. I got one up on him. But it's an individual sport. Shannon Miller, getting prepared for the balance beam, one of her best events, and she won gold on that. It was just her on that balance beam. Carrie Strug, standing on the end of that vault runway, injured. That's another part of this story. No one wants their children in that situation whatsoever. Those that are parents have a common sense. But standing at the end of that vault runway, injured, running down that vault runway for her country, she was doing it on her own, while Bella would have loved to have leapt out of that arena in the seats and done that vault for her. It's an individual sport. Do you remember my Olympic fall? Oh, good, yes. No one was there to pick me up when I fell on the floor exercise in the all-around competition. I had an opportunity to be the first African-American female to be on a podium, maybe first, second, right next to Lilia Pokapaeva, who kicked my butt from the Ukraine. But no one was there to pick me up right when I slipped and I fell. It was an individual sport. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, starting at the age of 9, 10 years old. I was conditioned to be that committed and to sacrifice so much of my childhood. Former athletes, you guys understand, especially if you were top at your sport, you were in pain almost every single day. At the 1992 Olympic Games, I was in the PT room with physical therapists every single day. What was kind of entertaining is I got to spend it every single day with Charles Barkley. 92 Olympic team, dream team. And then there were these little pipsqueak gymnasts. Great memories. But the pain, the sacrifice, the struggle, it taught me about work ethic. It taught me about commitment. I was a very passionate child. Very passionate. But I also had an option. Just think of this, 1992 Olympic Games, I was 4'8.5", and I believe around 83 pounds. And you remember back in the day, I don't know why they did this, but they would say the athlete's name, their age, and their weight. I know, right? They've stopped that. They're like, not so much, right? To help their self-esteem. But 4'8.5", nearly 83 pounds, that was not fun for me in high school, let's just say that. So I was very thankful to go to the gymnastics gym for nearly 36 hours a week. I fit in there. I remember when I first stepped into the gym, I had a very squeaky voice. I'm breathing a little bit more now. My husband loves to show my kids footage of me because I will not watch my gymnastics. Not that I'm, you were like, yeah. It's not that I don't like watching it, but I don't like to get stuck in the past. I love being present today. And I appreciate being hired for speaking engagements, talking about things that I did 27 years ago, but what brings me joy and happiness is motherhood, but people don't bring me in to talk about motherhood. So I weave that into my messages. I definitely do. But throughout my career, there was so much that helped me to become who I am today. But as I spoke about, the sport of gymnastics is an individual sport. The last time I checked, you have to have a $3 million revenue, but 25 W-2s. I'm there with the dollars, but not even close with the W-2s at my company, so I can't join your organization. No one's here as a CEO with no employees, with no teammates, right? In the sport of gymnastics, it trained you that it is me, myself, and I. Yes, I had a coach. I'm not going to go there right now. I had a sports psychologist at times, focused on the wrong things. I had my teammates, my friends, that some of them I stay in touch with today. What else do we have in gymnastics? I mean, you have we didn't have the luxury of what they have today. They have like massage therapists and I don't know, all these amazing, assistance and help. But it was just me on those bars. When my hands were ripping and bleeding, it was up to me to suck it up. I love sit-fu. I know you guys don't love sit-fu, maybe you do, but I love that attitude. I do. It's life. You're going to have struggles. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have hardships. It is what's going to make you a better person. But the sport of gymnastics taught me about individuality. It's just me, myself, and I. Also, you guys look mature. You guys remember the 1976 Olympic Games and that perfect 10? Right? You remember Nadia Comaneci? How many of you all watched the movie Nadia? No? Oh my gosh, you guys have never seen the movie Nadia? He's like, yes, I totally have. Right? Nadia Comaneci, Montreal, 1976 Olympic Games. She was the first gymnast to score a perfect 10. I was born that year. I think all of a sudden, like the switch went on in the sport of gymnastics that anything less than a perfect 10 was not good enough. So then when you would walk into a gymnastics arena, it was all about perfection. Individuality, perfection. Also, if you watch these gymnastics films or what have you, they always have that serious individual sitting off to the side behind a table. And what is that individual usually? Judging you, criticizing you, nitpicking you, focusing on every single thing that you've done wrong, right? So the sport of gymnastics taught me at a very young age, for 18 years of my childhood, much of my childhood. Don't ask me why I did it till I was nearly 24 years old. I knew nothing else. My identity as a young person was so wrapped up in being an Olympian. If you've ever seen the HBO special that Michael Phelps and a number of other Olympians talk about, they talk about the identity crisis. That's all they know. Do you want to leave the sport? You sure as heck do, but you feel lost. That was my childhood for 18 years. Trust me, this does get positive, and you'll be laughing again. Everyone's like, this is so depressing. But what I'm saying, the message I'm trying to get out to you is, the world teaches you that that is success, and that standing on top of a podium and earning a gold medal or being the first at something is success. Success is something that leads to happiness and fulfillment. In 1996, at those Olympic Games, were you there for the when we won gold? Like, did you hear that? He's like, that was the one part I missed. I was in the bathroom. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just picking on you. But when you're a 19-year-old kid, it's your second Olympic Games, and you stand on top of the podium. And I do recognize I was very blessed. Very blessed. Not up here harping and boo-hooing and crying over spilled milk. I have nothing to cry over. But at those Olympic Games, when I stood on top of the podium with my 6 teammates, we became known as the Magnificent Seven. We had no clue what that country western movie was about, right? Who named us that? I don't know which of our agents did it, but that individual should have been fired, because there could have been a much better name than the Magnificent Seven. And I think they've even done a remake of the Magnificent Seven, right? And then there's us. But when I was standing on top of the podium with my hand over my heart, singing the national anthem, and I remember Amanda saying, "Shut up, just lip sync, because this ain't working for you, Dom." And my heart was beating fast. I relived the 13 years, and I always used to do this as a kid. I relived the 13 years it took to get to that one moment. But I remember thinking the sacrifice, the commitment, the culture that I was in, even at that age, was it worth it? I had signed a scholarship to Stanford University in 1994 and had not been more excited in my life to get out of the cold weather in Maryland. I'm still trying to get to Florida now. You were like selling me on it. You're like, but I'm not selling you, but I am. It's been the best decision of my life. Trust me, I'm trying to get here. I got to sell now my husband and 4 kids, so it's a little harder. But I stood there, and I remember thinking about the road that it took and the sacrifices that I made as an individual, or the sacrifices that my family made. And I remember thinking as a young person, even at 19 years old, I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I had become a brand at this point. In 1994, when I signed to go to Stanford University, I was very excited. And back then, the Stanford cost $138,000. I knew exactly the dollar because I come from a middle-class family. My dad was a garbage man. He owned the company. My grandfather was a garbage man. He owned the company. My uncles were garbage men and recycling. I don't know why they didn't sell the company to us women, but they didn't think we could run it. I really wanted to run that company. But coming from a middle-class family, you have absolutely no money. The kids have no money. You have no money. We have no money, right? So when I had that option to go pro in the sport of gymnastics in 1994, why 94? Because I was 18 years old and I was going to make and keep my own money. I looked at $138,000 education at Stanford University. Now it's probably like $450. It's crazy. Versus going off and making and being a brand and making money. I chose the latter. There were a couple birdies in my ears that were enticing me and making me believe that that is the road for me and that's the fulfilling road. And so when I stood on top of that podium and I knew making history and being a part of the first ever women's gold medal team was going to be good for my brand and my business, there was something that was not sitting well with me, and it was unsatisfactory. And I thought, wow, 13 years. I'm standing on top of the podium, 50+ thousand people are cheering, 2.4 to 2.5 billion watching around the globe. I found that out after the fact. Goodness, if I would have known that there, I would have fallen off. But I remember even as a young person knowing this isn't happiness. This isn't fulfillment. That's what the world wants you to believe. That individuality, striving for perfection, constantly judged, looking around at the world and getting on top of that podium and making history will lead to happiness and fulfillment and success in the world's eyes. Now, trust me, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be here today. Right? If my team didn't win and we were second or third, you guys wouldn't be like, let's bring the silver medalist here. Not a chance. But what my journey in the sport of gymnastics has taught me is what helped me to become, let's say, quote unquote, a champion in the athletic arena would leave me to be a very depressed, depleted, and empty individual in life. If I decide that I want to walk around in this world as an individual and I'm in an individual sport or individual life, how incomplete would that be? If it was always about me, myself, and I? What if I was always striving for that perfect 10? Now those young women are getting like 16 fives. I'm like, what is this? This is so confusing, right? But imagine striving for perfection each and every day. You're going to fall short. You're human. You might have an on day where you feel like you're rocking it and you're in the zone. I remember having those days, and then reality sets in. Life sets in. Imagine walking around and knowing you're being judged or you're in a microscope, under a microscope. That would lead to depression and misery. So the sport of gymnastics taught me that that may lead to success in the world's eyes or on top of a podium, but I've had to now spend so much of my life retraining myself of how to truly be happy and fulfilled in this world. Having that team concept and that team mentality. It is unfortunate because with my company, I have a gymnastics and ninja academy. And I started it during the pandemic. No, not awesome. Yeah, I know, I totally know, I get it. Gymnasts are very literal people. I signed my lease in 2019. People think I was like bold, like, wow, she went for it during a global, absolutely not. I am fearful. I am anxious. I am human. I am imperfect. I signed a lease in 2019 to start this company. But what it was birthed from was a very painful experience in my life. Any pain that I've gone through in life has truly humbled me. Who loves being humbled? I hate being humbled. Hate it. Don't you hate it? It's like, oh, you're so right, but wrong. Can I kick you and get away with it? I hate being humbled. 1996 Olympic Games, when I fell. For the longest time, when I would think back of my Olympic career, I had to wake up from a nightmare. Yes, I was a part of making history. That was pretty cool. I inspired many people. But I also fell. Were you at that competition? He's like, nope, missed all that. So what did you go to in gymnastics? There were a lot of days of gymnastics. The 1996 Olympic Games, for those of you all that don't remember, I not only won gold, but days later I fell. Oh, that was humbling. That made me a better athlete, and it made me a better person. And it shaped my character more. Any painful experience that I've gone through in life, when I've taken the time to learn a lesson from it, has made me a better person. Any painful experience, even the ones that I didn't have control over whatsoever. I came from a very toxic home, let's just say that. Didn't hear words of encouragement. Didn't get that pat on the back. Didn't hear I love you. I remember even coming home at times from a competition and having fallen and hearing laughter. That was the kind of home life I came from. So that explains why, as a young person, I was going to stay in that gymnastics gym. Because home wasn't a place of love for me. It took a long time to forgive those individuals, but when you look at individuals and you see them as humans, and you see that they have faults, and they're hurting people, hurt people, hurt people. Misery loves company. So that's why I embraced the gymnastics gym for those 18 years. And if anyone knows anything about the sport of gymnastics and what has come out in 2016, it is all true, if not then some. Very toxic culture, riddled with abuse. And it's not just the Larry Nassar abuse. I knew Larry 10 years of my childhood. 10 years, he was a friend. He came to each gymnast. He was at 2 of my Olympic Games and came to us and said, I'm your confidant. You can lean on me. You can talk to me, ladies. Now, the one good thing is I had come from such an abusive household that my walls were up, and he was not going to break through. That was the one good thing from my abusive childhood. But he broke through to a number of my teammates. It's not just the sexual abuse, but it's the physical abuse, it's the verbal abuse, it's the emotional abuse that scars many of these young women and young boys for the rest of their lives. So in 2016, when all of the horrors of the sport came out, I was in New York City with my family. I was married at the time, never thought I would ever get married because of what I saw a marriage to be. But he opened my eyes and helped me realize you can make marriage as you want it to be. And I found an amazing guy who is my complete opposite, which is pretty cool. But in 2016, we had 2 little babies. He was doing the heavy lifting there. I was waking up at 3:30 in the morning, putting on lashes and hair and makeup with Robin Roberts. And my husband was managing, at the time, a 2.5-year-old and I think a soon-to-be 1-year-old in New York City. He was like, are we seriously all going? I'm like, yep, we travel as a family. I don't like being alone. But it's much more fulfilling being with those that you love. And I did GMA for about 2 weeks, and at the end, after Simone Biles had dominated those Olympic Games, you guys remember in Brazil? I didn't go, everything going on with Zika. I was like, I'll stay in the States. All of a sudden, the story broke about Larry Nassar. And the years and years and years and years of abuse that he got away with. And the toxic culture of USA Gymnastics, the toxic culture of an organization will kill an organization. At that time, I started processing what I had gone through as an athlete. When you watch the movie Nadia, right, you just are conditioned to believe that that's just what it takes to build a champion. That's acceptable. That is what's expected even. A lot of parents walk into a gymnastics gym and they bite that apple and they think it's okay for their kids to be ridiculed, judged, yelled at, put down, physically abused. Your child at 8 years old should not be climbing the rope 8 times because you, mom or dad, brought them 5 minutes late. You should be climbing the rope, right? But there's a lot of abuses that athletes started going through or started processing at that time, and I was one of those athletes that started really processing what I went through. And it took me back to even being on top of that podium with my hand over my heart with this gold medal and knowing that I had made history, but was it all worth it? Now, earlier in the intro, it said I was a part of a docu-series that was produced by LeBron James, Maverick Carter, Uninterrupted, and was an honor to work with an athlete that is the top of his game. Didn't he just beat someone's record, like some Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record? Pretty impressive. Golden was telling the truth of what gymnasts go through. And I had never been able to tell the truth of what I went through. And while, again, I was blessed and I had talent to do what I did and to inspire our race and inspire much of a nation, because I still get stopped by people today. I have no clue how they still recognize me because I'm like, I look nothing like I looked before except for these 4 gray hairs. And that was an honor. It was a blessing to be a part of that, but it wasn't worth the sacrifice. I don't believe that. Being a part of that docu-series and hearing these young women, I'm like, I know what's going to happen there, the end story there, she's going to need help there. And you can't, it's not that you can't heal. You can definitely heal. I would not have healed without my faith. That is what has healed me. And that is what has kept me whole. That is what has kept me sane. And that is what keeps me going down the right path of what he desires for my life and not what the world desires for my life whatsoever. But from that moment of processing my pain came the birth of these academies. And I wish I could say it was me being fearless. I am very fearful. Like my husband's like, I don't know how you competed in 3 different Olympic Games. You were so afraid. I learned how to face my fear. It's always going to be there. There were seeds deeply rooted in me, instilling fear and instilling a horrible amount of insecurity and self-doubt. But when I surround myself with the right people and stay leaning on my faith, I know that I can persevere through anything in this world. So from that painful experience in the sport of gymnastics for those nearly 18 years, that is the birth of those academies. And my husband, who was a school teacher for nearly 18 years, when we were dating, it was the coolest thing. When we were dating, he would always talk about his students and say how a former student would come back and say hello to Mr. Thompson or want to see the headmaster or come and support, some of the sporting events or come to the annual gala or invite them to dinner with their family, or a birth announcement of their child or invited to a wedding. And I'm like, what in the world? He was like, what are you talking about? We're a community. He had been teaching for 18 years. Many of his students have multiple kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are so old now. He's like, I feel so old, right? He then also thought about, wow, you spent 18 years of your childhood in a gymnastics gym, and you never want to go back. You feel forced to go back because your coach forces you to go back because she tells you what you owe her. But there was no love there. There was no kindness. There was no compassion. He knows a number of my teammates from the Maryland area. He's like, they fly in town. No one has any interest in going back, guys. That's a problem. Even many of the gymnasts will talk about how I drive in the direction and I have anxiety. They attribute much of their insecurities to that toxic environment. Meet a number of gymnasts, and you would think, oh, they are the most confident, secure, driven. So many of my teammates are the most beautiful people, smartest people. And when they look at themselves in the mirror, they do not see that whatsoever. When you're in such a toxic environment that is planted and rooted in such hatred, it really has stripped them of their self-esteem and value. So from that, my husband made it very clear, I don't care how private you are or how introverted you think you are, you're going to be a part of this change. He made it very clear to me. I was like, okay, you're not going to tell me what to do. He made it very clear USA Gymnastics is not going to hire you to clean up this mess and make you the CEO. They don't want to change. He made it very clear in a loving way. This was not him like coercing me or demanding me. You've got to be a part of the change, and the best way to do it is to create your own academies and your own community that is full of the love that you wish you had as a child. So the birth of these academies prior to the pandemic was rooted in a very painful experience or experiences that I had in life. I never had a desire to be a CEO or to lead a group of people or to be a part of a team. It's so much easier being an individual, isn't it? You just lean on me, myself, and I. If you fail, it's on you. If you succeed, it's on you. But when you've got a team, you've got to humble yourself. Because why? You can't do it all. So my academies right now are filled with amazing people, first and foremost, that love working with children. Isn't that a concept? That is a concept, right? When they see a kid, they smile and not see them as an opportunity or a ticket or a commodity. When they see a child, they look at ways in which they can lift up the self-esteem of that child. There is nothing special that we are doing other than every single kid in our academy matters. I don't give a crap about your parents' net worth. I don't give a crap about your talent or inability to walk and chew gum. Each and every kid in our academy matters. Not a unique concept. And I learned it very much from my dating experience with my husband. And what we hope to build with these academies is we started the first one March 2020, everything shut down. We were supposed to open April 2020. What timing, right? Woo, I wasn't smiling like that. I was crying on the inside. You guys remember that time that we all went through together? I had just flown home from Boston. I gave a speech at Gillette Stadium. That was very painful because I am a Ravens fan. It was very hard. Like reliving things. Great event. I remember being at the airport and thinking, wow, it is a lot quieter. I've traveled quite a bit throughout my days. Not as fulfilling when you have a family. I like being with my family. That's what I'm trying to say. If I have a family and I want to be on the road, there's a problem. My husband didn't believe me that I like being with him and the kids. And year one of our first daughter's life, we were out in LA for work. It's not like I'm vacationing, for work at least 10 times. And then probably 10 to 15 other flights. And he was like, this is just not going to work with my school schedule. He was a teacher. But I like having my loved ones there. It's exciting, right? Part of it's probably my journey of being an individual sport or being on my own or alone quite a bit. But it's fulfilling having my little ones there and being a part of this journey and being part of this experience. That's success, right? Who wants to stand on top of a podium when you think about it? Even with a group of girls that became my teammates, they did become my teammates, and I'll share a little bit about that. But in front of 50,000 people, looking at opposite ends of the arena as my parents were going through a horrific divorce and feeling completely alone, right? You want to have your loved ones there. And that's what we all were gently encouraged to do March 2020. When I had landed from Boston, my agent reached out and said, hey, you know those speaking engagements you had lined up as it was once an Olympic year? They're all canceled. Oh, for a washed up Olympian, you really do rely on Olympic years. You look forward to it. Remember the Tokyo 2020 Olympics? I was so excited. Had a lined up pretty full packed year, was gonna rock and roll it, opening a gymnastics gym, and then March 2020. We were all gently encouraged to go home. People are like, wait, what? Of course, the fact that it was a global pandemic, people were getting sick, people were losing their lives, very fearful time for each and every one of us. We didn't know what was going on whatsoever. However, how many of you all went into your home life and embraced that quality time? Actually started to get to know your spouse again. I mean, if only those TVs didn't work or cell phones didn't work, that would have been some serious quality time, right? There were no sports on. My husband was very sad. He was like, this makes absolutely no sense. I have to listen to you? In a nice way, in a nice way. We have a normal marriage. That's success. Getting things right in the home. Going to a home that's full of harmony, not 24/7. If it's full of harmony 24/7, you are not communicating, or you guys are clones or something. I don't even want that. I don't know. Not that I don't want happiness and peace and joy, but I like strife because I learn about myself. I learn about him. I grow as an individual. It sucks. Being humbled. It's not good to have your ego crushed. But ego, what is ego going to do? Ego is going to ruin a happy home. If my teammates and I kept our egos intact at the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia, guess what? We wouldn't have made history. If you would have come to Greensboro, North Carolina, that's where we trained prior to going to Atlanta before the Olympic Games, before staying in a frat house at Emory University. Men, I don't want to know what goes on there because I don't know what the smells were. They didn't allow us Olympic gymnasts to stay in the Olympic Village. We got mobbed, so we couldn't stay. And so at those Olympic Games, that was the loudest pour ever. At those Olympic Games in Greensboro, North Carolina, if you would have come into our practice gym, initially, you would have heard crickets, other than the fact that our coaches were yelling at us because they wanted to compete and see who could yell the loudest. But you would not have seen or heard anything that had to do with team spirit or camaraderie. We weren't cheering for one another. We had our tunnel vision on. It was an individual sport. I was the only one that was going to be on top of that balance beam. Shannon wasn't going to save me. She wants to win. However, we had this very cheesy affirmation jar, and we picked from it every single day, and it was just like clockwork, and no one took it in whatsoever until one day it was the cheesiest saying, team, together, everyone achieves more. Light bulb went off. We realized, oh my gosh, I cannot make history as a team as an individual. We then walked into the gym the next morning. It was like 1:00 in the morning. I don't know why we had to go at 6. It was like our coaches were programmed to keep that same schedule. I'm like, there's no school in between. It makes no sense. Why are we having to wake up at 5 and go to train at 6? But when we became a team, all of a sudden we looked around at our fellow competitors as teammates, as friends. We started cheering for one another. We weren't having fun. Trust me, the sport of gymnastics is not fun. No one's like, oh, yay, let's go nearly break our neck together. It's tough, goodness. But we actually leaned on one another. When Shannon would make a mistake, which was never, but I like to say that in my story, I would give her words of encouragement. Carrie Strug would give me a pat on the back. Amanda Borden, that smile, that Pepsodent smile of our team captain, that was her 24/7 nearly. She was supporting us, saying, you've got this, Dom. We took our large egos and put them off to the side. And we realized the only way we're going to make history is together. How many of you all in this room have an ego? Oh, this is the first room that's ever laughed. Normally people are completely silent, like, not me, I don't know who else would have one. Love it, you guys are real. My gosh, if you've done something that we think is deemed successful in the world's eyes, or know people of power, or a person of power, or prestige, right? We think we've done so much, which could be taken away from us like that. Seriously, my gosh. Right? I hope I wake up soon. When you got that large ego, it's all about you. You're not going to work well with others. You're going to delegate, but you're going to micromanage because it has to be done your way. My coach would always say, it was like hell or the highway or hell or something. You know what I'm trying to say? 24/7, it was her way. If you're a leader, you've got to relinquish control in some degree. And if you feel like you're having problems with that, hire better, hire well. I hate firing, but I know why I fire, because I made a mistake. I didn't hire what I was looking for. I didn't hire character. I didn't hire someone that has the same vision and philosophy. Ego. I wouldn't be standing here today before you all speaking about my Olympic achievements as a team if my ego stayed intact, or my 6 other teammates kept their egos intact. Ego will wreck my marriage. During COVID, when we were gently forced to go home, how many of you all walked into your home with an ego? When I walk in and I think, I'm so special because of what I did 27 years ago, that's a long time ago. When I walk into my home and I think I'm so grand because there's a statue going up in Montgomery County, Maryland, 10 minutes outside of the Washington, D.C. area, and I think I'm the hot shit. Or I think because I started a company during a global pandemic that is grossing multiple millions, that I'm so great. I walk through my doors looking at every single thing that is wrong and staying fixated on it. I walk through my doors. I have 4 kids. My dream was 4 kids. I don't know how and why he blessed me with that. Didn't think I was capable of being a great mom. 4 kids, though I prayed for 4 boys, but that's okay. 3 girls, and got that 1 son and the twins. And when I was pregnant with twins, and I found out at 7 weeks that the text said, oh, did twins run in your family? And I was like, ah! Tears of joy, right? I was a small person then. I didn't think I could care. I got over 200 pounds. I told my husband, I'm going to beat you. And he was like, please don't. Beautiful 4 little gems. When I got that ego, I look around and I have a problem with the fact there's always 10 loads of laundry that need to be done. Don't ask me why. I look at it over in my laundry room, and it's a nice, spacious laundry room. I came from nothing. Why am I complaining? 10 loads of laundry. I bought the clothes, my husband reminds me. Problem. That is a big problem. 10 loads of laundry is a problem. I look around, There's toys. My son loves Matchbox cars. He also wants to be a fireman. And so there's so many fire engines. I'm like, there's no more on Amazon. Mommy can't find them. My husband's like, yep, she will find them. My daughters love princesses. I never did dress up as a kid and never had a regular childhood. So we're going to get every princess dress up thing there is, right? I look at the backyard. There's a sandbox that I made, so it's poorly made. It is poorly made. It's like just dirt and sand. I'm like, so much fun. And I see a problem with it. There's clutter. There's disorder. There's 10 loads of laundry. If you have 4 kids, your house is never quiet, right? There's noise all the time, right? My husband, we live in Maryland. It's cold in Maryland. There's 4 seasons in Maryland. It's not Florida. He wears flip-flops 24/7. On our second date, he asked for permission. Would you mind if I wore flip-flops? I was like, it's like December. Sure, you know. Now he wears them all the time. So annoyed with flip-flops. Does your husband do that? Well, it's Florida. Can't even. But my husband, he leaves flip-flops. I love telling the story because it's real. This is a real story. He leaves flip-flops on the stairs. Who walks downstairs or upstairs and mid-step come out of your flip-flops and then leave your flip-flops there? And I complain to him all the time, your flip-flops are so annoying. They're always in the middle of the stairs. And I fall over them all the time, and his comeback is, well, if you know they're always there, then why do you always fall over them? I know, that's marriage, right? Seriously, I'm like, oh, these flip-flops. And I like hide his flip-flops. I've actually thrown flip-flops away. He somehow has backup flip-flops. It's amazing. Ego can turn a mole hill into a mountain. Ego will make you have a problem with everything and everyone. I remember for 35 years of my life walking into a home that was not full of love. I remember walking into a home and praying someday that I would find this great guy, that he would just show up at my door. Ego makes you forget about everything that you've prayed for and how it's right there in front of you. There is going to be a day, God willing, that my husband and I grow up and our kids grow up and they're out of the house. How many of you all are empty nesters? You look too young to be empty nesters, but don't you yearn for those moments again? You're like, no, not really. For the noise, for the clutter. My husband should have been a monk. He gets like a dumpster every year and just starts tossing stuff when I'm not at the house. And then I go through the dumpster. And the other day I went through I'm not even kidding. Last week I went through the dumpster and I found 96 Olympic memorabilia. And he was like, oh, I didn't think you wanted it. I'm like, do you not see? It says 96 Olympic memorabilia. He's like, it is a glass Coke bottle that's halfway filled now. It's never been opened. You really want to keep it? And I'm like, our kids will want it someday. And he was like, I will guarantee you they will never want it. And I'm like, it's going back on my office desk. But he goes through all this stuff, right? Because he wants to get rid of the clutter. But someday our kids will grow up and they'll go off to college, God willing, and start their own families. And I'm going to yearn for those 10 loads of laundry again. I'm going to yearn for those Matchbox cars. I'm going to yearn for those moments like last night where I'm sharing a not large bed with 3 of my daughters, kicking each other because everyone wants to be next to mommy, but there's 3 people, so how does that work? And I'm just waiting for that alarm to go off so I could just get up and get out for a minute and get a break. This is a break. This is a break. But I so look forward to going back and seeing them. That's happiness, that's fulfillment, that's success. But when you have your ego intact, you forget about what's most important. You forget about what makes you truly happy and what life is. At the end of our days on earth, if we are given time, isn't that crazy to think about? Oh, that we're not going to live forever. Who wants to live forever? Michael Jackson did want to live forever, remember? If we're given time, who are you going to want to be with? And what do you want to be thinking about or focusing on? You know what I'm not going to be focusing on? This gold medal. Someone can throw it in the casket. It's not like I'm going to know the difference. Making more money, knowing more people, of power, of prestige, having my name in, I was going to say magazines or newspapers, but I feel like we need to go digital. You're so right about that, because I saw that, and I was like, that is so old school. And then I filled out like 20, and I put perfect 10 for me, so just let you know. It was like, not Dominique, right? Not Dominique. We got to stay focused on what matters most. I'm going to end with these two stories here. You guys are like, what time is it? No clue, because there's no countdown clock. Number one, prior to marrying my husband, I talk about my marriage a lot. Because I know at the end of my days, it's my faith, it's my husband, it's my 4 kids. Everything else is just icing on the cake. He's not really second, but I have to say he's second because that's what we're supposed to say, but yeah. It's my son. No, I'm just kidding. But Jeff and I, when we were dating, it was a rocky dating. When you come from abuse, when you come from toxicity, no matter if you've achieved what the world says will lead to success, you are going to be a very fearful, anxious, and insecure person. And so when we were dating, and he proposed, I think 3 times. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I know, right? Well, I was like, shit, or get off the pot. He's like, oh my gosh, so much pressure, right? Seriously, I'm just really blunt. He loved it, and then he didn't, and he's like, you know what, it's just who you are. He accepts me for who I am, because he knows my journey. He knows what what life has just dealt me, which is in some ways very much a blessing, though. But we did something called pre-Cana. So it's like premarital counseling, and you get to know who you are, right? Like, what am I bringing to the table? What is he bringing to the table? And they did this little like personality thing, and I was considered a very strong choleric. Driven, passionate, blinders on much of the time. 18 years of my childhood. It's going to wire me a certain way until I choose to, reframe things. And if I want to be happy and if I want to be fulfilled, I sure as hell better reframe things. But at that time, I was very much a strong choleric. He, on the other hand, sanguine, all personality. Like when I walk into places, I am finding a way to be invisible, but I am the speaker. How is that possible? I will hide myself in a notepad. I want to be invisible, but he had something different for me. He had something very different for me. Don't know why in some regards, but he did. And when I say he, you know who I'm talking about. Not Jeff. My husband walking in a room would be like, ah! I was on Broadway and got kicked off, don't worry. They cut my mic. My husband said, Grease went dark because of you. They definitely cut your mic when you were on stage. I was like, no way. He's like, it went dark for a reason. He's gregarious. He's got personality. He loves people. He says, I don't love people. I love people just in doses. And then sometimes from afar. I'm very good one-on-one. I love one-on-one. But the group thing, I can't keep up with all these different conversations. He can, and then I ask him, hey, what'd you talk about? And he's like, I don't even have a clue. Sanguine. Finds a party. So in pre-Cana, they said choleric, sanguine. And I said, help me understand this. And they said, just envision a mountain. Just envision a mountain. There's a boulder at the bottom of this mountain, and the goal is to get that boulder at the top of the mountain. I'm very goal-oriented. Doesn't make sense to just show up and go through the motions. Why do it? I was like, I got this. So the individual explained, Dominique, your choleric personality will right away get to work on getting that boulder to the top of the mountain, come hell or high water. And then Jeff, on the other hand, might start with you, but he'll look to the right or the left or up or down. Doesn't matter where he looks. He's going to find something, someone much more exciting. Not infidelity, but it's just his personality of, there could be a party and I'm just going to make it happen. And so I thought to myself, so I'm going to be left here getting that boulder to the top of the mountain. She's like, no, he'll make it back some point. But he's going to go find a party. So of course I was completely perplexed because he was there as well. And I was like, did he not hear the instructions? Was it not clear? Was it in a different language? She said, no, he's going to have heard the instructions. Now, my husband has severe Tourette's and ADHD. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's that. No, it's his personality. And I said, I don't understand. And she said, let me just make it clear, because clearly I was not getting it, because I'm very much a planner. And she said, he's wired very differently than you are, and you're going to be focused solely on that goal, and he's going to be focusing on enjoying the moments in life. But she said, if you come to a middle ground, you're not only going to get that boulder to the top of the mountain because you're pretty driven, but you're going to enjoy it along the way. I'm only going to enjoy life along the way when I get out of my own way. When I take this large ego that life wants to make you believe that you're great at everything and you can do it all, and I try to tell it to men, yes, whatever, but women, we don't want to strive to do it all. We don't need to be super women, and we don't need to be super men. We need to focus and stay centered on what is most important. And I will say I've been on top of that mountain in the athletic arena. And while it is an honor and it is a blessing to know that I was able to inspire and impact other people, it wasn't fulfilling. What's fulfilling is being in harmony with my husband. What's fulfilling is being in harmony with my family. And what's fulfilling is being in harmony and knowing I can impact others and walk alongside them and not just solely in front of them. So remember, ego gets in the way of happiness, of fulfillment, of true success in this world. And this is the last story here, and then I will open it if there is even time for Q&A. Never met her. Didn't get the blessing and honor to meet her in person, but I have learned to get to know her indirectly through my husband. Thank you for that alarm. That does help. My husband's mom passed away 15 years ago. We have been married now going on 10 years this May. So years prior to me meeting him, his mom passed away. She was diagnosed out of the blue, he said, with cancer and was given 6 weeks to live. During these times, I'm sure many of you that have close relationships have heard of loved ones that have gotten a diagnosis and given a short bit of time to live. We will not live forever. Isn't that crazy to think? We aren't going to live forever. But if we are blessed, we have time. The one good thing about cancer, my husband says, and my dad has cancer as well, going on 12 years, is you have time to get things right. He said those were the 6 greatest weeks of his life. With a mom that loved him from the moment she knew him in her womb. She said, or he said, we got an opportunity to say I love you, to say thank you, to say I'm sorry, to say I forgive you, and to really embrace and appreciate the time he had left with her. There was no turning back, and they knew it. And he wouldn't take those moments back ever, he said. if we were given time, we have a clock, we don't know it, but if we are given time, how would you live life differently? I remember at the end of my career harboring a great deal of resentment towards my parents, harboring a great deal of resentment towards my abusive coach. And I was carrying that weight wherever I went, even on top of a stage, in a different arena, with a smile on my face, but pain and heaviness in my heart. Do you need to forgive? You're never going to forget. You're human. I think it's wonderful that we remember some of the painful moments that we've gone through in our lives so that we choose not to repeat that. I hate hearing the words that I heard from my parents, but you know what? It helps me to become a better wife, and it helps me to become a better mother. We've got time right now, and we don't know how much it is, but are there people that you need to forgive? Forgive. Do you need to forgive yourself? Are there people that you need to say thank you to? Are there people that you need to not only say I love you to, but show love to? At the end of my days, if again I am lucky and there is not a tragedy, I am laying there on my deathbed, yearning to hear the noise that I'm blessed to walk into each and every time I walk into my home. I will be yearning to fall over Jeff's darn flip-flops that are sitting on the steps. I'll be yearning to embrace my loved ones. Why wait? March 2020. I think that jump-started it for a lot of us. That quality time with your spouse, that quality time with your kids. Almost try to get yourself back to that moment, because now that the world is opened up, I've been giving speeches now. It's interesting because Florida, you guys really didn't shut down very much. I was like, I need to relocate because this is like, I could live life. I had speeches here, I think it was in 2020. And I had come from Montgomery County, Maryland. I don't know what's happened in Maryland these days, but Montgomery County, Maryland was one of the most conservative. Like if you had a company, it's boarded up. Boarded up. It was one of the most conservative areas, and they conditioned so many people to leave their homes or even in your homes wear masks. And I remember getting on flights and getting to Florida, and you guys were living life. And I would give speeches in tears, and it was tears of joy that you guys were not imprisoned. How would you live life differently? Take yourself back to that March 2020, and don't forget about the people that are most important. It's not about the gold medal. It's not about the podium. It's not about your net worth, because guess what, guys? You can't take it with you. So remember what's most important. Well, I don't know how much time we really do have for Q&A, but I do look forward to meeting each and every one of you all that get an opportunity for the photographs. Thank you.